The hallway was filled with cheers, laughter, and something even deeper, hope. No one expected that this moment, this simple walk down a school corridor, would carry so much meaning for one small boy and an entire community. It all started 2 years earlier, on a cold autumn morning, when 9-year-old Ethan Carter woke up feeling tired. Not the kind of tired you get after staying up late or playing too much, but the kind that makes even getting out of bed feel like climbing a mountain. His mom, Sarah, thought it was just a seasonal illness. Maybe the flu, maybe a bad cold. Ethan had always been a little more sensitive because he was born with Down syndrome. But he was also full of life, always dancing, always smiling, always bringing joy into every room he entered. That morning, though, something felt different. "Let's just get him checked," Sarah said, trying to stay calm as she helped Ethan into the car. At the hospital, things moved quickly. Too quickly. A simple blood test turned into whispered conversations, nurses walking faster, doctors with serious expressions. Within hours, Sarah heard the words no parent is ever prepared for. "Your son has leukemia." The world seemed to stop. The noise of the hospital faded. The ground beneath her felt like it disappeared. Ethan was admitted immediately. What Sarah thought would be a quick visit turned into something far more serious. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Ethan didn't go home for over 2 months. The hospital became his new world. Machines beeping, nurses checking vitals, endless treatments that no child should ever have to endure. And yet, even there, Ethan was still Ethan. He found ways to smile, to laugh, to dance, even when he barely had the strength to stand. His favorite thing? Music, especially old pop songs that made him feel alive. Sometimes, in the middle of the night when the hospital was quiet, Sarah would see him gently tapping his fingers to an imaginary rhythm, as if reminding himself that joy still existed. But the journey was anything but easy. There were days when Ethan couldn't get out of bed, days when the pain was too much, days when Sarah had to hold back tears just to stay strong for him. And then came one of the scariest moments of all. One night, without warning, Ethan suffered a stroke. Doctors rushed in, machines started beeping loudly. The room filled with urgency and fear. For a moment, it felt like everything might be over. "How is he still fighting?" one doctor quietly said. But Ethan did fight. Somehow, against all odds, he pulled through. That was the kind of boy he was, strong in ways no one could fully explain. During those long hospital stays, something unexpected happened. Ethan made a friend. His name was Noah, another young patient going through his own battle. The two boys met in the oncology ward, and from the very beginning, there was a connection. Not because they talked a lot, but because they understood each other in a way no one else could. Sometimes one of them would be admitted for a short stay, only for it to turn into weeks. And strangely, the other would soon follow. It became almost like a pattern. If Ethan was there, Noah wouldn't be far behind. And if Noah showed up, Ethan would soon arrive too. They shared laughs, quiet moments. Even just sitting in the same room brought comfort. For Sarah, seeing Ethan with a friend meant everything. When Ethan was first born, she had fears. Would other kids accept him? Would he have friends? Would he be included? Those questions stayed with her for years. But here, in a hospital room filled with challenges, Ethan had found something beautiful. A true friendship. However, life had another heartbreaking twist waiting. In the spring of the following year, Noah didn't make it. The news hit Ethan hard. He didn't fully understand everything, but he understood enough to feel the absence, the silence, the missing laughter. For the first time, Sarah saw a different kind of sadness in her son, one that couldn't be fixed with music or dancing. And yet, time kept moving forward. Treatments continued. Days passed. Slowly, carefully, Ethan's health began to improve. The hospital visits became less frequent. The bad days became fewer. Until finally, the day came. After nearly 2 years of fighting, after countless nights in the hospital, after pain, fear, and moments that tested every ounce of strength, Ethan was cancer-free. The day he rang the bell at the hospital was emotional. Nurses clapped, doctors smiled, Sarah cried. But something felt missing. Noah wasn't there. Ethan looked around as if expecting to see his friend. And for a brief moment, the celebration felt incomplete. But what happened next would change everything. When Ethan returned to school, something incredible was waiting for him. The hallway was filled with students. Teachers stood along the walls. Everyone was there. As Ethan stepped inside, a wave of cheers erupted. Clapping, shouting, smiles everywhere. He looked around, surprised, overwhelmed. And then, he started walking, one step at a time. Kids reached out for high fives. Some gave him hugs. Others simply called his name with excitement. It wasn't just a welcome back. It was a celebration of who he was. Sarah stood at the end of the hallway, watching it all unfold. Tears filled her eyes. This was the moment she had feared might never happen. Not because of the illness, but because of the world. And yet here it was. Her son wasn't just accepted. He was loved. Ethan wore his favorite jacket that day, red and black. On the back, it had a message that said everything without saying too much. A reminder of everything he had been through and everything he had overcome. As he reached the end of the hallway, he turned back for a second. He looked at the crowd, and then he smiled, a real, pure, unforgettable smile. The kind that tells a story words never could. Because this wasn't just about beating an illness. It was about courage, friendship, loss, and the power of community. Before we continue this incredible journey, take a second to support the video. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps share stories like Ethan's with more people around the world. And trust me, the next part of this story will stay with you forever. But for now, just remember this moment. A small boy walking down a hallway, and proving that even in the hardest battles, light can still find its way through. For Ethan, that day in the school hallway felt like the end of a long, painful journey. But in many ways, it was only the beginning of a new chapter. Because surviving something like cancer doesn't just leave behind memories. It leaves behind questions, emotions, and moments that continue long after the hospital visits are over. That night, after the celebration, Ethan sat quietly in his room. The noise of cheering classmates had faded, replaced by a calm silence. His mother, Sarah, gently opened the door and saw him holding something in his hands. It was a small hospital bracelet, one of many he had worn over the past 2 years. But this one was different. This one reminded him of Noah. Sarah walked over and sat beside him. "You miss him, don't you?" she asked softly. Ethan nodded. There were no big words, no long explanations, just a quiet understanding between a mother and her child. "He would have liked today," Sarah added, placing her hand over his. Ethan looked up, and for the first time since the celebration, he smiled. But this time, it was mixed with something deeper, something more emotional. The next few weeks weren't as easy as people expected. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Ethan was back at school. He was healthy again. The nightmare was over. But inside, things were still settling. There were moments when loud noises made him uncomfortable. Moments when he felt tired faster than before. And sometimes, moments when he simply sat quietly, thinking about everything he had been through. Sarah noticed it all. Healing, she realized, wasn't just about the body. It was about the heart, too. One afternoon, Ethan's teacher called Sarah after school. Not because something was wrong, but because something unexpected had happened. "You should hear this," the teacher said. Earlier that day, the class had been asked to draw or write about someone who inspired them. Most kids chose athletes, superheroes, or famous people. But several students chose Ethan. Sarah was silent for a moment. "They wrote about his strength," the teacher continued, "about how he kept smiling, even when things were hard." Tears filled Sarah's eyes again, but this time they were different. These weren't tears of fear or uncertainty. They were tears of pride. That evening, when Ethan came home, Sarah showed him the drawings. Colorful pictures, simple words, big meanings. One said, "Ethan is my hero because he never gives up." Another read, "He makes people happy even when he is sick." Ethan looked at them quietly. Then he pointed at one drawing and laughed. It was a picture of him dancing with music notes all around. "That's me," he said excitedly. And just like that, a piece of his old energy came back. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, life began to feel more normal again. Ethan returned to his favorite routines. Music filled the house once more. He danced in the living room, sometimes pulling Sarah in to join him. But something had changed. Not in a sad way, but in a meaningful one. Ethan seemed more aware of others. If he saw someone sitting alone, he would walk over and sit with them. If someone looked sad, he would give them a hug without saying a word. It was as if his journey had given him a deeper understanding of kindness. One day, Sarah received an invitation from the hospital. They were organizing a small event for young patients still going through treatment. And they wanted Ethan to come back, not as a patient, but as a guest of honor. At first, Sarah wasn't sure. Returning to that place brought back so many difficult memories. But when she asked Ethan, his response surprised her. "Yes," he said immediately. The day of the visit arrived. Walking through those hospital doors again felt different this time. The same walls, the same smells, the same sounds. But now, Ethan wasn't there for treatment. He was there to bring hope. As they entered the oncology ward, some of the nurses recognized him instantly. "Ethan!" one of them called out with a wide smile. They hugged him, their faces lighting up in a way that only comes from seeing a miracle right in front of you. Soon, Ethan was introduced to a few young patients. Children sitting in beds, connected to machines. just like he once was. For a moment, he stood still. Then slowly, he walked over. He didn't give a speech. He didn't try to explain anything. He simply did what came naturally to him. He smiled and held out his hand for a high five. One by one, the kids responded. Some smiled, some laughed, some just looked at him with curiosity. But in that moment, something powerful happened. They didn't see a patient. They saw someone who had made it through. Someone just like them. At one point, Ethan noticed a boy sitting quietly in the corner. He wasn't interacting with anyone. His head was down. Walked over and sat beside him. For a few seconds, neither of them said anything. Then Ethan gently tapped his shoulder and pointed at himself with a playful grin. The boy looked up, confused at first, then slowly smiled. It was a small moment. But for Sarah, watching from across the room, it meant everything. Because she realized something important. Ethan's story wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about impact. About the way one life, no matter how small, can touch so many others. Before leaving, Ethan walked past one of the hospital rooms. He paused. For a second, it felt like time had stopped again. That room looked familiar. Memories rushed back. Late nights, quiet fears, holding on to hope, and Noah. Ethan didn't say anything, but he gently placed his hand on the door, then looked up at his mom. Sarah understood. She nodded softly, and together they walked away. That night, back at home, Ethan did something he hadn't done in a long time. He turned on his favorite song and started dancing. Not just a small movement, a full, joyful, energetic dance. The kind that filled the entire room with life. Sarah watched, smiling through tears, because in that moment she knew. Her son wasn't just surviving anymore. He was truly living. And maybe, just maybe, that was the greatest victory of all. Life will always bring challenges. There will always be moments of pain, loss, and uncertainty. But Ethan's journey reminds us of something powerful. Strength doesn't always look loud or dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a quiet smile, a simple high five, or a small boy dancing in his living room after everything he's been through. And maybe the biggest lesson of all is that even in the darkest times, kindness, love, and hope can still shine brighter than anything else. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends.